First of all, you don't know me.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens, smart girl, rough girl, fashion but you're tough girl. You could sit with us, girl. Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens.
Welcome back. We ended last week with champagne.
Hey, no.
We're kicking off this week with the rest of the bottle of champagne. So this is the recap of episode 1, the pilot. Air date September 23rd, 2003.
OTH day.
I didn't realize like jersey number 23 and then we aired
Wait
on
a
the
minute.
23rd.
I didn't
of
catch
2003.
What? Whoa.
It feels like Illuminati.
Did
with
they
all
do that
these
on purpose? They must have done that on
numbers.
purpose. Maybe.
I don't think so. I think that was Michael Jordan's number.
Yeah.
Oh,
23 was Michael Jordan.
So the synopsis is, here we go. Nathan Scott is Tree Hill High's biggest basketball star, and he's dating Peyton, a cheerleader.
Ew.
And so much more. Nathan's half-brother Lucas joins the team and threatens to take both Nathan's spot in the lineup and his girl.
As if.
You're like, I was nobody's girl.
I belong to myself.
I was my own.
So grumpy.
I have to perhaps start in an unconventional place, but we've all just watched the pilot for the first time since 2003. And oh my God, Craig Sheffer is so hot.
I told you.
You always knew, Joy.
I could spot it from a mile away. I was like, I was in love with him.
I was late on the pickup with that because I was like, well, he's playing one of the grown-ups.
I was like, he's a grown-up, but you were like, no, ladies.
You had no time for the young dudes.
No, not at all. I had
were
no time or
wise.
patience.
You were wise beyond your years,
Yeah.
Joy.
Yeah, he was like muscly and his jeans were tight. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about the denim
Yes. Oh, God.
in this first episode.
Wow, this baggy denim.
The cuts of jeans on the men.
Yeah, all this in flares.
Also on us.
I loved my jeans. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I've been wearing flares consistently, whether they're cool or not cool.
Flares are pretty fabulous, but it's more the rise or the lack thereof that I'm concerned with.
Hip huggers.
They were just, were the zippers 2.5 inches long?
We're
3
gonna
inches
blame-
long?
Just above your pubic hair, like just barely.
On a good day. We blame Britney Spears for this.
Ugh.
She really, she ruined it for the rest of us. But I also feel like because we were in Wilmington, North Carolina, our shopping options were not what they were in New York or Los Angeles. So we were dealing with like being 6 months behind any cool kid curve.
But I have to say, there's a part of that worked to our advantage because most people don't have access to like it's, I mean, that's if you live in the city and that's a priority for you and that's fun and it's a great way to express yourself. But there are a lot of people who just, that's not a priority. And so I think there's a relatability in that as well.
Yeah, we looked like regular kids.
At the time, OC had come on the air.
Right.
Over the summer and had blown up, and it was all about rich kids, and so that was our competition.
But that was a fantasy element, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why
They were so
we weren't.
fancy.
Yeah.
We were Gap, Old Navy,
Dillard's.
mall kids.
Yeah.
We were mall kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless that.
I
Hot
love
Topic.
that though. So
mean-
it's so relatable. I think that's one of the major things that the fact that we were relatable in that way that kept the show on the air for so long, that we weren't just the fantasy element of murder and intrigue and the parents all sleeping with each other and everything. I mean, that didn't happen on our show until at least like season 5.
When did Barbara start rolling around with Chef? I remember that being
Antoine.
Antoine. Oh my God.
No, there's so many things that I never noticed about the show until we just rewatched it.
Yeah.
Like the grooming.
The grooming.
The grooming between Paul and James.
They have the same hair.
Yep.
And then Chad and Chef, like the
Same hair.
Yeah.
Same haircut. And guys, when
clothes.
we
It's smart.
when
It's
we
good.
refer to Chef, we're talking about Craig Sheffer, who played Uncle Keith. And yeah, like we just watched the scene where they're in Keith's body shop, and Keith and Lucas have the same hair, and we just never knew.
Never
I
noticed.
never clocked it.
Never clocked.
Speaking of hair, Joy and I would look like sisters if we were groomed.
Yeah,
the
because when I
same.
showed up in Wilmington, I had curly blonde hair, and they took one look at me. They're like, "Yeah, that's not gonna work."
No.
So,
How quickly did they make that decision?
it was like within. I'm sure they had made the decision probably before I showed up. I mean, when I tested, I was blonde, And then they just probably figured out they'd just dye it as soon as I got there, which they did.
Yeah.
But
Did they tell you that though?
I had a feeling with. I mean, I'd seen the pilot. I knew they wouldn't let us look exactly like. And I was game for it. In fact, actually, I was super excited about playing this character, and I thought like maybe I'll get bobby pins and stick them in my hair so that my ears will stick out. So I'll look like. I just wanted to add this element of like awkwardness to her. I thank God I didn't do that because can you imagine like
6 years, 9 years?
Yeah, 9 years of bobby pins.
The ear tuck episode would have had to happen.
Like, guys, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You're like, I have a headache all the time.
Yeah, but the hair was a deal because I didn't straighten it a lot, and back then there were less
Tools.
tools and advances in knowing how to handle curly hair and make it straight in the South in the humidity. And so I ended up with this very flat top, wide bottomed hair that was kind of a strange color, but it's all right, you know.
But your hair, I feel like, I mean, we'll see as the episodes go on. I feel like you had like 3 different hair colors season 1 because they kept dyeing it and dyeing it and dyeing it.
Yeah.
And it was like an evolution of hair.
And I was trying to like, it was also weird, like, because we didn't all want to look alike. And I didn't want to like compete with you because you were the blonde one, but I also like was naturally blonde. And so it looked good on my skin tone to lean lighter in that way. And then then there was a time when you went really platinum and then I went blonde.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wish I had just stayed the same color, honestly. Like
You
it was
were red
just-
for a
I
minute
was
too,
red.
right?
Yeah. it
Oh
was
God,
all
I
over.
dyed my hair every color in the book.
You were
over
super
the
black
years.
at one point too, like
Yeah.
dark black hair.
Well, I had dyed my hair black in the summer between seasons 2 and 3.
Oh, because you
for
were
a
doing the horror movie. Yeah.
I dyed my
Yeah.
hair black and I cut bangs, and I remember even lightening it when I came back. It was so much darker than it had been, and our boss, who shall not be named, lost his marbles that I'd cut bangs because he was like, all the cheerleaders who never paid me the time of day in high school all had bangs and they were bitches. And it was
Bangs equals bitches.
Bangs equals bitches. But it was that funny moment because we were just watching the pilot about how our hair was kind of this battle.
Well, but not to bring back Felicity, but
It was
that's
the Felicity
because of that. Yeah.
It was, when she cut off all her hair, they went crazy.
Kids
And-
at home
and
might
put a
not
quad-
know about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Okay,
Tell that
there's
story.
there's a great show called Felicity. If you haven't gone back and watched it, you really should.
Carrie Russell is an icon.
Just a dynamite actress. But she had this big, beautiful, long, curly blonde hair, blondish brown hair. And she went away one season and cut it off. And Michelle Williams did the same thing actually in Dawson.
Yeah.
She just chopped it all off. But her hair wasn't its own image.
Character.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Carrie's hair was like, it was an image that was instantly recognizable. Nobody else on TV had hair like this. So when she chopped it all off without letting anybody know, everybody kind of went crazy. And the show's ratings actually dropped and they connected it to her hair being cut off.
Which is ridiculous.
I
It was
think
like
it's absurd.
It was like in his 5th season.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, the ratings dropped and it happened to be the same time.
Heaven forbid the writers admit they'd gotten lazy. They'll just blame the actress and her hair.
That's right. So so then from that point forward, everybody was trying to do recon and put into every actress's. There was like a hair clause in the contracts or something, right? Like
I
you
feel
can't
like there's
do
a
something
whole
to your
vice
hair.
president at a network that's just in charge of actresses' hair. Like the boys can do whatever the hell they want to do.
But it was a massive battle about hair every
Yeah.
episode.
And for
bangs,
us-
curls, flyaways.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you can't do
and
anything.
it had to be down, sexy down.
approvals. Take the Polaroid, send it off to LA. Make sure they approve this hairstyle.
Yeah,
all
it
of
was so crazy. And Hilarie, you pointed out so wisely that, watching the pilot, you'd been fighting to get ponytails for the girls at cheer practice.
So now looking back at it, the stuff that I was fighting about right out of the gates, like the audacity of a 20-year-old kid to be like, hi, you're wrong. I feel like I can go onto a set today and assert myself, but the idea that I was doing that as a child, I'm mortified.
And about hair, like nobody had taught us how to pick and choose our battles. Like which ones do you fight for?
But also the irony is that at 20, you had been a cheerleader 2 years before. So you were like,
Exactly.
no, cheerleaders are athletes.
When I didn't
They're
want
doing
like
stunts.
cheerleaders to make fun of us. Like
Yeah.
God forbid the real
Heaven
cheerleaders
forbid.
out there be
That's
like,
right.
oh, these fake TV cheerleaders. So I was adamant that like there was accuracy.
Okay, well, this is a good segue because getting away from hair, because we can only talk about that for so long.
I don't
But
know.
like speaking of hair and being a cheerleader, there Lucas asks Peyton a great question in the pilot. He says, "Why are you a cheerleader? You're the least cheery person I know." And I did always kind of wonder why Peyton was a cheerleader.
I think that's why we needed Brooke. You know what I mean? Like, I remember having like an internal struggle my real senior year in high school where I didn't like what cheerleading stood for. Like, I didn't like being in the passive role of cheering on someone else. But all my best friends did it, you know? And it was like a way for us to hang out after school, go on trips together. You know, it was a thing that connected us, and I could make fun of it because I was one of them. You can't make fun of a cheerleader when you're not a cheerleader and not sound like a total asshole. I mean, I guess other people do, but you should know you're an asshole. So it made a lot of sense for me for Brooke to be introduced because she was the anchor for Peyton. It was like, if my mom's dead and I'm a nightmare and the one person in my life I can rely on does this dumb thing, I guess I'll do this dumb thing too.
Yeah.
But when we shot the pilot, you weren't there yet.
Yeah.
And so I had to go over to a high school in Wilmington, and, you know, I'm like a 20-year-old VJ, you know, and it's like all these real 15 and 16-year-olds, and they're like, okay, so just hang out with these girls after school. And so part of me felt like a predator. I was like, what am I doing hanging out with these children, you know? But like in the pilot, that was a real high school cheerleading squad that was local to the area. I'd love to know what those girls are doing now. Like how weird it must be for them to see their childhood experience like played out on TV. Like Bevan grew up in Wilmington.
Yeah.
She kind of had a tap on it, but
Was that anyone's childhood experience though? Like what we just saw, is that, I mean, obviously we know it's heightened for television, but I'm trying to imagine in my high school that something like that actually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like the experience. I don't think. I mean, who knows? We did say during the viewing that we were like, God, we all thought it was so scandalous that there was this idea that this guy would have knocked up 2 women and would have 2 kids, and now we're like, people have whole other families. We didn't know.
Now that I know grown-ups, I'm like, grown-ups are so messy.
Grown-ups are so messy. But it's funny because at the time we were like, this is so crazy. But I also think there is that real element of when you are in high school, it is your whole world. And the stakes feel so high. The stakes are so high because that's the entire scope of your universe and your experience. So I almost feel like the stakes of the rivalry and who gets to play on the sports team, they felt high. They were dramatized because really, you know, when you're young, you're just like, I want to fit in and I want to belong and I want my family to be okay. And I don't know, it's pretty real for a lot of people.
Those stakes still felt high for us at 20 being on that set.
Oh my
because
God.
we're not that far out of high school.
Yeah.
So I mean, those hormones and those emotions and the feeling of everything being really big. I mean, you were talking about buying your first car, you know.
Well, and I had gone to a really big sports high school. Like Parkview High School went to states in football, and we were like machines. And so we went to states and cheered and had those big, huge moments. So for me, I felt like I knew it better than the adults who were writing about it. Cause I was like, guys, I was literally just here, you know, like I know what this looks like. And I think that's why I was so like bossy about it. But nobody was like that good looking. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, the hard part was the beauty element of it, because I look back at pictures of real high school, and we should definitely post our real high school pictures.
Oh yeah.
Because it wasn't cute.
No.
Like at
The
all.
eyebrows. Those 90s eyebrows.
Guys,
eyebrows.
super crunchy hair, you know?
The
Like,
year I thought I could have a bob and learned that that's a real bad haircut on me. My junior year in high school.
You're cute.
No, junior year in high school. It's a picture so bad. I'll show the 2 of you. I don't know if I'd
Was it
post
like split down the middle? Yeah.
and like chunky highlights.
Yes.
Oh
Whoa,
wow.
and
like
my eyebrows
Robin.
were overplucked. Like,
Did you like twist it back with the butterfly
I
clips?
did that in middle school for sure. Good God.
No, dude.
Yeah.
It all comes back to hair, man.
I know.
But-
There's such identity in it.
It was one of the few things that we felt like we could control as the girls, because we couldn't control what we said. We couldn't control like what we were wearing
Yeah, not much.
necessarily.
Or what our characters had to do.
Well.
I mean, that moment for you in the pilot.
Okay, so yeah, when we were watching the pilot, there's a scene where Peyton comes out of the bathroom after Nathan and is like, "Hi, Mr. Scott." And so when I first got the job, it was called Ravens. We've talked about this. And the arc throughout everything was narrated by Barry Corbin, by Whitey. And he was describing everything that happened in the town to his dead wife, Camilla. And that was...
who we didn't find out was dead until the end of the pilot.
Oh, you're totally right.
That's right.
But that was the tone. It was
Yeah.
like a really sweet, like small town, aw shucks kind of show. But they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of 8 Mile. And they wanted it to be like an aw shucks town, but with this 8 Mile underbelly of the kid from the wrong side of the tracks. Never in any of that was there a sexy element. Right. And so I felt totally safe just being like, okay, yeah, I'll go and be the cranky girl. So then when the OC got popular and we had to turn up the sexy, it was like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, well, do we get a say? Like, do we get to have an opinion about it? And we didn't. We just had to turn up the sexy, which, like, thankfully, we're all really sexy. In our flat shoes and our, like, corduroy skirts.
Oh my God.
But that was hard. That was hard for us as young women who were all like, we were all relatively like
prudish.
Demure in our, in our activity. And so when we were to get into that environment and have to play this, like, I don't know, older male
Wildcat.
idea of what a young teenage high school girl could be in a dream world, or maybe was,
Or
maybe
a fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yikes.
don't know how much of that was how much of it was experience of girls that maybe they knew that, we just weren't like, or I don't know.
I don't know
Anybody who's having sex in high school.
Oh, I did.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
I did. But like, I also think it for the people who were,
But everybody
it
was
was
talking
really
about it.
late and it was a big deal.
Yeah. Everybody was like, oh my God, they have
No one was
sex.
casual about
No,
it.
I mean, my God, my very first boyfriend who I dated until I was a senior in high school was my best friend from summer camp since the age of 9.
Oh,
Like my sweet, like high school sweetheart who for years I was like, I'm still not ready. Was like, it's okay. Like just such
be
a
friends
gentleman,
forever.
like a true gentleman.
Yeah.
And it's funny to think like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I dated 3 people by the time we got on our show.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what? None.
Yeah.
none of
You
us
would
knew
never
anything-
casually come out of the shower in front of their
out
parents.
of the shower
my
in front of your boyfriend's father.
gosh.
Like, how dare you be in the shower at your boyfriend's house in
No.
the first place?
No, I shower with my clothes on, in fact.
I also just love, I gotta tell the listeners, because it's a fun one to watch, when you come out of said scene where Paul is really just ripping into James, because he has, by the way, the one episode where James has a nipple ring that some makeup artist had to glue onto his chest, by the way, gross. And
like
the
a
piercings are gross, just like, ew, having a fake one glued on is gross. And no one liked it, and so they never referred to it again. But you walk out of the bathroom and you wouldn't even look at the camera.
No, they're like, can you cheat out? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like, I'm mortified right now. I'm hoping this gets cut.
Yeah, I'm mortified by this fake situation, so I'm not going to play it.
Like, I still, as a married woman, couldn't do that. Just like traipse by in my towel in front of my father-in-law. Like,
Oh yeah, no, so blasé.
No, I would never.
yeah, ew, sick, ew.
In front of you guys, but like in-laws? Oh my God, it makes me
No,
feel so small and
father-in-law?
hot
Oh,
with
no.
shame.
Meanwhile, also like looking back on it, Paul was also a viable option. Like, Paul's the same age as my husband. And so
Heyo.
like the whole element of like traipsing around like semi-dressed was just so loaded and weird. And I remember that feeling of, I was never allowed to watch these shows growing up. And here I am, like right
On
smack
one.
dab in the middle of it. And this one's potentially worse than what I wasn't allowed to watch.
And you're the
as a kid.
heroine too. You're the one that we're watching and like,
Well, I don't know. I
learning
was
from
told pretty
and-
much off the bat. The second the first episode aired and the reaction to Peyton was so bad, Because it really was. The reaction to her was so
Wait,
negative.
really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, they came
God,
to
I
me and
always
they're like,
loved her.
we're gonna have to take you dark, right? And then you'll have a moral arc where you like come back around and people will understand why you're such an asshole. But
That's kind of great though. Like as an actor, that's
that we understand that now. But back then,
yeah.
you're like 20 and you're just like, please
People
like
hate me.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
like the chat boards. Remember the chat boards?
Yes.
Just pages
That was
and
it.
pages of
It's a hideous place.
judgment.
It's so people are so cruel.
Yeah.
And the irony that we clearly are not in control. I mean, we did over the years have to go so hard in the paint for our characters.
Yeah.
And when we would win a battle, it was really like winning a war. And there would be people online being like, can't believe you did that. It's like, well, I didn't want to. Mr. Jersey 0796. You, man. Like, God, do you think I chose this?
I didn't choose this for me.
I did not choose this choice.
And if they'd known how bad it was supposed to be
Right.
and what we like reeled it back
Yeah.
in to become.
Yeah.
And so like the new normal that this show created of like parents not being around, of like casual sexuality and stuff.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm really happy we've been so open about with
too.
conventions and things like that. Cause I never wanted teenage girls to feel like they were behind the 8 ball or that they were like missing out on something. Cause I'm like, oh, do you want to see pictures of 11th grade for real? Cause
Yeah.
it's like a lot of acne.
We fought for that a
and-
lot because we knew that we were speaking to a young audience, and I was constantly having conversations about like young girls look up to me and up to this character, me as this character, and I'm nervous about A, B, or C because I don't want them to think that that's like normal or okay, or that they should be treated that way, or that they should subject and the conversation between as an actor portraying a character and you want to show that the character has an arc, so your character has to have flaws and they've got to learn things and go through things. So yes, you don't want to be perfect all the time, but you also, there was this sort of moral responsibility that we felt, and it was tough. That was really tough to navigate as a young woman.
And I remember also the excitement of feeling our first sense of permission to be a little wild.
I mean,
Because like you and I,
Yeah.
Hilarie and I,
We
our
turned
birthdays are a
21.
week apart.
Yeah.
We
That's
turned
right.
21 and we started working a week later filming. We were already in Wilmington.
it was really fun.
But I remember that first night we went to Level 5, which was this cool bar on top of a theater, and we ordered drinks and looked at each other like we had just gotten away with murder. They were like, "Can we see your IDs?" And we were like, "Yup." And even we were like, "Are they going to get rejected? Are they going to know they're real?"
Yeah.
And then they gave us cocktails, and we looked at each other like, "Oh my God, it worked!
Yeah.
It worked!"
It was magic. And like we had money to buy our own drinks.
Because I
It was crazy. Yeah, it was. I mean, I wish we'd had like phones with cameras at the time because
We'd
of the
have
stuff,
so many memories on our
also
phone.
like a lot of blackmail. You know what I mean? Looking back at the show now, just watching it objectively, Joy, you were really good to point out like the structure of it is so good.
It's
and there
so
was
good.
nothing else like it on TV at the time. The parallels between what each boy is going through.
Yeah, the way they cut back and forth on the courts, with the cars and the buses, the connection between the 2 older brothers, the 2 younger brothers, that whole dynamic.
Yeah.
That was really strong.
Yeah.
There was a lot of wildlife in this episode. Joy got attacked by pigeons.
That's right. There was an alligator in some scene.
It was
right?
in my scene. What was your pigeon experience?
Oh, we had some guy out there with the pigeons trained. So that was for those of you who don't know, that was called a steady shot. It was a steady cam shot. It was a oneer is what we call it, because there's no coverage, which means the camera's not popping in on Chad's face and then my face to get each of our lines. It's just one camera setup, and we do the scene, and we walk through and say our dialogue, and when it's over, we're done.
And by the way, baller for the Steadicam operator, because what that means is that there's a guy wearing a camera strap to his chest, walking backwards, looking in a monitor at you and Chad in a 2-shot that never cuts, never moves, has to be perfectly timed. And this man has to trust the guy who's dragging him by the vest enough to just look at the two of you and walk backwards blindly. It's so hard. It's so hard.
And it's got to be perfect. If one person, if somebody coughs or sneezes and doesn't make it work in the scene, you got to start all over again. So
or if the pigeons
And so we're doing this oneer on the Steadicam, and we had the guy with the pigeons, and there was like always a thing. We could never get it to work, and it was so frustrating. I don't know what, they would fly in the wrong direction, or like he'd open the cage and they'd just walk out. Like there was never anything right. So finally it worked, and then we continued on with the scene. But I had that was my pigeon wildlife experience. What was yours?
I had the gator.
Yeah.
Was it my first day? It was either my first or second day, but it was my first real day of like acting. I may have done some like extra work in a different scene, but my first real day of acting was that roadside scene where my car is broken down and it's just Chad and I. And Chad had been on Gilmore Girls. He'd been on Dawson's. He'd done like a Haley Duff movie or something, or like he'd done so much work. And so our director was a very big time director, Brian Gordon. And I knew he'd done some like HBO stuff, and he was a very big deal. And I had not done a chemistry read with anyone. I hadn't tested. I had done this, one little part on Dawson's Creek. I had done, my scene study classes in New York for the last 2 years, but mostly it was theater where you've got a really big space to move around and rehearsal time.
Yeah.
So Chad and I get called to set, and I knew my lines coming and going, right? We go down there. They put us on these marks, which are like little, pieces of tape in the shape of a cross. And they're like, hit this, don't you dare look at it because the camera's pointed at you. You just have to feel it. And I'm like,
unless it's a wide shot where there's like a little dot the size of half your fingernail.
Yeah, they rip the tape tee off and they're like, see this little dot we left you? And you're like, in the grass? The green dot in the grass? No.
Smaller than my pinky nail. So everyone's like just like telling me all these things, and no one realized I didn't know the business at all, right? I didn't know how to hit a mark. I didn't know how to find my light. I didn't know any of this. And while we're in the midst of the very first rehearsal, a gator is swimming up to Chad and I, and no one is clocking it. Like no one's saying a word.
In the marsh.
My gosh.
In the marsh right there in the water. And I'm like, hey, anybody? Nobody? Anybody? And I was distracted, right? Like warranted. So we end rehearsal. I go to my trailer. I knew it was bad. Like I knew it was a bad rehearsal because the lingo they were using, I kept having to ask like, what are you talking about? Pulling focus? Like, what does that even mean? I had no idea. The director comes to my trailer. Bang, 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 bang. And I was like, yeah? He's like, I need to talk to you.
Oh.
You didn't know your lines. Yes, I did know my lines. I knew my lines, but there was like a lot going on.
You're like, there's an alligator, sir.
Don't you ever waste my time or the crew's time again. And I was like, I cried, and then I had to pull it together. And like, it was just like the worst, scariest day. But I never didn't know my lines again. Like ever, like my whole career. It was a great note to get your very first day.
Yeah. Even though you didn't deserve it.
Like for the record, I knew my lines.
I just had an alligator coming at me.
But the interesting thing is that the requirement is you have to be unflappable.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And that's a hard skill to learn.
It was
your
a good
first
note, too.
day. Yeah.
No one, but the thing is, when you go onto a job, no one realizes it's your first day because it's not their first day.
Right.
They've been doing this for years. Like you're just welcome to the circus, kid. And so it definitely set the tone for me of crew first. Always crew first. Be a team player. Don't ever waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
I think that probably plagued me a little bit the whole course of shooting because I was then I tried to overcompensate. So I'd be like, I'll advocate for every department, like I'll fight your battles for you because I'm on your team, remember? But it all came down to that freaking gator.
Wow.
I mean, people die all the time
All
in
the
Wilmington
time.
getting eaten by gators.
In Wilmington, I didn't know that happened all the time.
Yeah, like Greenfield Lake.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whoa.
There
I
was
know. I
a-
never
there-
walked my dog down there.
Yeah, no, there were some bad stories about like, I remember maybe this has been created in my brain, but I'm 99% sure that when we lived there was a story about somebody walking their dog around Greenfield Lake and the dog got snatched.
Oh, yeah.
But the person's arm was in the leash.
No.
And so when the dog was getting rolled by the gator, the person walking it was also drowned. And I was like, well, I'm never going there. Ever. I'm never going.
This is the mythology that's so fun about shooting in a small town.
Yeah.
Because, like, you don't
Did
know.
it happen? I don't know, but I heard it did.
Oh my god.
It was also just such a crazy thing because I remember, you guys obviously shot the pilot. You do pilots in the spring, guys. So like March usually.
Yeah.
And so it's chilly still in Wilmington in March. But then when we got there to start shooting properly, and Joy, when you had to shoot all your pilot scenes, do all those reshoots, it was July. It's 100 degrees. It's 100% humidity. But you're shooting a show that's going to be airing on TV in September.
Oh, the
so you're
sweaters.
wearing cashmere sweaters and leather jackets. And they're like, could you stop sweating? One of the camera guys. And you're like, I wish I could help you. I'm so sorry.
No, and
always
another
so
thing to note
crazy.
is that our show was supposed to be a mid-season replacement.
Yeah, January.
That's right.
And that's why we were all dressed for winter because we were supposed to come on the air in January.
Yeah.
And so we were filming in July. We had a 6-month lead and another show got canned. And so they put us on the air right away in September. But that meant that we were filming an episode and then it would air like 2 or 3 weeks
fast.
later.
It was fast. Yeah.
So there was no way to adjust for like reaction, to like crowd reaction and stuff like that. It was so, I just remember being so nervous about Peyton because I was like, everybody hates her. Everybody hates her. I'm on set reading about how everyone hates her. And like, we're still in the midst of like being a big jerk,
Oh, man.
So it was, that was scary. There was no promotion for the show.
It was all word of mouth. And that was a
kinda
crazy
cool.
thing. Yeah, because every
Street
week,
cred.
Yeah.
street cred, man, every week the viewership jumped in ways that we all were like, what's happening? And when we first, because obviously you ushered us in, Hill, to the whole world of MTV. And I will never forget when we went and did that first TRL and the people at MTV were like, last time we had a crowd this big was for Eminem.
Yeah.
And we were like, Times Square was, I've never seen a crowd like it. And we were like, this is for us.
Yeah, I was.
Like,
I remember being really confused.
Oh,
when
I
we
was like
pulled
having a
up.
panic. I was sweating. I was
Guys,
like,
I
what
was
does it mean?
convinced
I didn't
that
think
like
it was for
Warner
us.
Brothers paid people to do it, and
You
now as an
were?
adult, I'm like, well, no, then every movie would have done that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we didn't have those crowds for anybody else. It was,
I didn't know that they were for us. I just thought Times Square was packed. And we pulled up and I got out and I was like, man, this is crazy. What is going on? And I got out and I saw somebody in the immediate crowd surrounding us holding up a poster that was Nathan and Haley. And I just was like, what?
this Haley?
Wait, what? I mean, they were holding
Yeah.
up posters for all of us in all
Yeah.
different ways, but that was just the one that my eyes saw that was like, oh my God, wait, these people are here for us?
Yeah.
Especially because we were just in this
crazy.
little town. Like, oh man, we were laughing so hard, you guys watching the pilot, just thinking about all the shenanigans of our lives there. And like one of the things that's so funny about Wilmington, it's a college town and it's a retirement town.
Yeah.
So like it was us, 21, and then it was a bunch of 19-year-old kids at UNCW. And
I
then
wasn't
like,
going to kiss those.
nope. And then it was a bunch of people's like dads and grandpas on the golf course.
I might have kissed those.
I wasn't going to kiss those either. And so it was kind of just us. Like all we had was each other, literally for better or worse. And oh man, we just had no perspective on anything outside of our little bubble in this little place. And then we got to New York and there were thousands of people in the streets outside of a building where we were going to do press. And we were like, what is this? It was like being in the Twilight Zone. It was so crazy.
I remember other people talking about like, oh, your life's about to change. And I'm like, well, I've been on TV since I graduated high school. Like, what are you talking about? You know?
Yeah.
I do live TV.
Yeah.
You know, I get the reaction right away. So to do something where the reaction was delayed was weird. Because then it really was so much bigger. And I had a boyfriend, a fiance at the time, who came to visit and was like riding a skateboard around our base camp.
Oh my God, that's right.
And I remember our bosses going, he won't last long. Oh, yeah. Like they knew our life was about to change enough that I would just like cast off the old skin and turn into something different.
I never felt like, I mean, did you guys feel like your lives did change all of a sudden? Because like I said, we were in Wilmington.
Only in that I was making decisions 100% on my own for the first time, like where I wanted to live.
Yeah.
You know, I went shopping for a car with Brian Greenberg in those first couple episodes. And I remember I was looking at like a Mountaineer. Do they even make Mountaineers anymore?
What's a Mountaineer?
It's kind of like a Jeep, right?
I don't know.
Like a Range Rover, not a Range Rover, whatchamacallit? Yeah, like a Jeepy kind of.
It's like a sport
Yeah, it's
utility
like
vehicle.
a sport SUV.
Not like a Subaru?
Girl, I don't
No.
know.
I think a Mountaineer is like a.
I think I was just excited.
Look,
to
there it
spend
goes. Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Like a Ford,
Oh, okay.
like a Ford Escape or whatever.
Got
those
it.
are,
Like
yeah.
an Explorer.
Explorer.
I was
that's
just
what I meant,
pumped to like hang out with Greenberg because he was so cool, you
He
know.
was
And so
really
we were
cool.
like shopping for cars, and then I was too scared to actually spend money on a car from a car lot because I wasn't
It's
convinced.
scary to spend money
And
when
so
you're
I-
making it.
I bought like a $1,500 1986 Mercedes that like had the crank windows, you know, and like
turbo
no
diesel.
AC, and that's what we would like drive into work.
Yeah.
And it felt extravagant at the time.
all of us trying to figure out who we wanted to be. I mean, that's a big deal at that age. Like, you know, we all had different personalities, but we were looking up to other public figures at the time and to the things that we saw in the magazines and other
Who
women
did
that we
you
saw
wanna be?
around us. I didn't know. I mean, I there were things I admired about you. There were things I admired about you. And I remember like, okay, let me copy that and see if that feels right in my skin. No, that doesn't feel right.
It was like
Let me-
trying on a sweater.
Yes, and I'd look at a magazine and be like, let me try that on and see. And I think every teenage girl can relate to that. We're all trying on different suits to see which one
Yeah.
fits us.
I felt so confused too, because to your point, everyone around us kept telling us our lives were changing, but I just felt like I had no idea what that meant. And I think part of it for me, you know, I grew up my whole life. I went to an all-girls school with 50 girls in my graduating class.
Oh my God.
I wore uniforms. Like I didn't have any of the experiences we were portraying.
Oh, that's so weird.
And I had
Soph.
never
I
been
never thought about that.
Oh, I had never been in a class with boys. My high school sweetheart was my best friend from camp since I was 9. I'd never been lied to. I'd never had anyone try to sell me anything. I went to college and I wanted to have the opposite experience. So I went to USC. I thought sororities were lame, but my best friends were joining one. So I did just like you as a cheerleader. But I was the philanthropy chair of my sorority because I can't help but be a nerd.
I like clubs.
And I dated a boy all through college who was a computer programmer. Like we were just so cute. I had like these dreams of making the kinds of movies I loved. And I remembered like, you know, watching My So-Called Life and loving Claire Danes and thinking she was so talented. And she went on to do movies I respected. And I thought maybe someday that could happen. And then suddenly we were on TV and everyone was saying it was happening. But like, we were just going to work every day and like getting offered sweet tea at like the local furniture store where you and I, Joy, were like hunting for antiques.
Yeah.
And nothing
Are you talking about the Ivy Cottage?
Yes, ma'am. The Ivy Cottage on Market.
Right next to that great Thai place.
God,
What was that?
Indochine.
Indochine.
The best. But like everyone was saying it was changing, but I still kind of felt like a little kid and I didn't want anyone to know I felt like a little kid. So I was trying so hard to be a grown up.
Me too.
Oh,
See, I had come from MTV where you were looked down on if you hung out with the talent. It made you like a can I say
like a
starfucker?
Yeah.
Yeah, it made you a starfucker. And I was so against that. And so for me, it was really hard to be on the other side
To
of the
be
line.
the talent.
I didn't like how people were like treating me, and I didn't like feeling like I was being coddled.
God, you had so much perspective.
And at that time, the only way MTV would let me do the show is if I worked
You had to fly back.
I worked Sunday.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So it was hard for me to connect with anyone because I was always gone. Because I worked, we shot in the high school on Sundays so we could get the gym.
Yeah.
We worked Sunday through Thursday. Friday morning at 6 a.m., I'd fly to New York. I would film like 3 different shows, and then I'd work again Saturday morning, and I'd fly home Saturday night, and then like go out, and then go to work again on Sunday. And I did it for the first 2 seasons. Oh my God. And it was so unsustainable. I mean,
And by the way, you're being kind about that schedule, because let me just tell you all listening at home something. These basketball days in the gym averaged for us as girls, because we have a 2-hour pre-call.
Yeah.
We would film for 16 hours in the gym, meaning we would work an 18-hour day
and be told that's normal. It's normal.
on our quote unquote Monday. Which means that because the later you shoot every day, the later your call the next day has to be. By Friday, we'd be going into work at 4 p.m., starting at 6 p.m., shooting until 4 or 5 a.m. on Saturday. So Hilarie, you are on Friday morning.
Yeah, that
Thursday
changeover.
night into Friday morning, we'd shoot until 4, 5, sometimes 6 a.m. And you would go straight from set to the friggin' airport.
I didn't look
to
good.
fly to New York.
It was, you see, I think you'll see over the course of the season, like I just disintegrate like a little bit more each, and I can see it. Joy, to your point, it's what you were saying about knowing what you were going through personally.
Yeah.
Like I watch myself trying so hard to spin all the plates. So then by like season 3, when I was like, guys, we're done here. And then I can just commit to the show. Season 3 really is one of my favorite seasons because I was just able to do one thing.
Yeah.
And it felt nice. And I got to cut my hair. Like, like it felt so nice. But yeah, it was, you forget how bad you wanted it as a kid.
Yeah. And we were all trying so hard to be these grown-ups who like deserved this position that we never said no to anything.
Oh, no.
Anything they asked of us, anything they said was normal, anything they told us we had to do. By the way, I even think about like any question I was asked. Like when we would do press and they would interview us, no one ever told us you don't have to answer a question if someone asks it. So you'd be like,
true.
wow, that feels personal. Okay. Like we just wanted to be good so badly that we didn't realize at times we were like coming apart at the seams.
I think messy is what made us really relatable. Yeah. Everyone at home was like, oh, I feel her pain. Yeah. We all just carried different pain.
I still love when people are like, I feel like me and Brooke or me and Peyton or me and Haley, I feel like we would be friends. And I'm like, I love that. That's my favorite feedback.
The Peyton crying in her car, I guess there's like a meme of me crying in a car. And my son, every night at 7 p.m., gets online with his best friend and they look at memes. That like they watch YouTube videos and like that's what 5th grade boys do. And so I guess at some point my son got curious and like saw a Peyton crying in her car meme. And so like 11-year-old Gus is like, why were you always just crying in a car? And what's kind of great is like, I know now why Peyton's like always like super messy, but it wasn't explained in this pilot.
No, not at all. I mean, I liked that. When I watched the pilot, I liked that because I thought there's really somewhere to go. Like, I want to understand this girl. Why does she?
That was empathetic of you, Joy.
I didn't have the reaction that apparently a lot of other people did.
I just thought she was so cool.
Yeah, I thought you were
such
super
a crush
cool and
on you.
interesting.
Well,
I always was like,
I'll kiss you later.
I was like, Hilarie's so grown up and she's so cool and her arms are so long and slender. How'd she get like that? And she knows how to use pom-poms and shows me. Like, I just wanted to follow you around like a puppy. I was like, teach me stuff. Can I go to bars with you? You're cool. Like, I just felt like, didn't you feel like she knew everything?
I didn't though, guys. I was intimidated by Joy because Joy had been in Thinner. And I had remembered like Like, oh, she was in like a movie. Like a big deal. You were the pro.
I was 14, like 6 years
hell
before.
yeah.
That's amazing.
So funny.
I was so intimidated by your theater
long ago.
acumen. I was just like, wow, she keeps talking about all these plays and I've never seen any of those. Like, I don't know anything about musical theater. Like, cool. I felt like it's interesting thinking about it. I just felt like I had so much to learn from you guys.
Weird. No, I felt like what I had said before, where I was just kind of terrified inside and just like, looking at both of you in awe and like thought you were both so cool and so like with it and so like you were so stylish, Sophia.
Yeah,
oh my
showed
gosh.
up with her no back blouses. Like Sophia had an orange halter neck top.
That's when cut t-shirts were cool. And that was a t-shirt that had been cut up by some girl in LA. And the neck was the armholes, you guys. It was like a men's extra large t-shirt and you'd like put the armholes on your neck. I felt so cool because a girl who was older than me in college, who was in my sorority, had like taken me to this t-shirt shop. And I was like, this is cool. I'm an adult on TV. I should wear this in public and put my face through some guy's armpit holes. Like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing.
No, but you also were like the Pied Piper of all the dudes on the show with that shirt. Like I remember a caravan from the Riverview Suites to the Rhino Club up on Market, and just they were all following you like ducklings. I was just like, that shirt's killing it. We had watched Nip Tuck.
See it.
Your episodes of Nip Tuck were airing, and we all like watched them together. And then we went, because we were 21 and bona fide, to a bar to celebrate.
We were like, we're getting cocktails.
And Greenberg played his guitar. God bless Greenberg being, in every
so cool, man.
dorm,
So cool.
there's
He
that
is.
one guy with the guitar.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was our
Ours
guy.
was Greenberg.
He was our guy.
But not like Jake's character was not overly romantic. Those guys, there's always a guy with the guitar who really he's like, I'm the guy with the guitar.
He's barefoot.
Greenberg's not that guy. He was just always seemed so self-confident and just sort of in his own skin.
He was just cool. And he was like covering Elliott Smith songs.
That's right.
He was
so
good
cool.
for the like music recommendation. He had really cute friends. Like when we would come up to New York for MTV, Greenberg would be like, we're going to meet some of my bros from NYU. And I was always like, I'll come. Yeah, that sounds so fun.
Oh God, I wish we'd been on
I was
those
just gonna
trips.
say, I wish I'd hung out with you. I wish I hadn't been so afraid of everything, that I had actually like gone out and hung out and done all that stuff. I was just like so terrified of.
Thankfully, though, we had trips. Like trips forced us into that space. And season 1, we had the hurricane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chicken and waffles. Do you remember that place?
Oh my God.
Oh, God.
It was like the spot. We all met up there, right? It was
Yeah.
like half of us went to one place
Late
and half of
night.
us went to the other place because it was like there's a hurricane and we all need to be in the same spot. So we went for chicken and waffles.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I mean, the hurricanes, that was something that was new for all of us. And so you take all these kids that are away from like home or just what they're used to for the first time. You start filming in September and then hurricane season hits in October and we're all forced to like be grown-ups and deal with natural disasters and also like
was
be on a
insane.
national television show and then fly all over the country and do
my
press.
By the way, remember when people were like, oh, are you stormproofing your windows? I was like, a what, a who?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I don't know. I mean, I was still living above the bar, so.
Stormproofing my windows. Yeah. The idea of like nailing boards into the wall. It's
I'm
like,
like, I don't know
I don't know
how
how
to
to
do
nail
that.
a picture frame into the wall, guys. Like, I'm pretty sure I can't stormproof my house.
We'll be fine.
Okay, so obviously now the world knows we were all so terrified to be at work and so deeply intimidated by and
It's good
enamored
to
with
dispel
each other. Oh my God. Like, but Joy, I'm so curious for you because, Hill, you had done the pilot and then you came in to do these reshoots of the pilot. And then I came in and we all started working together right as soon as those were done. But what was it like to have to reshoot some of those huge pilot scenes? Because some of them are easy, right? Like you're at Karen's Cafe, it's you, Chad, and Moira. But then you had to do shots to match that huge basketball scene, like the Lucas and Nathan face-off that starts the show.
Yeah.
Was that insane to have to do that?
What was weird about it was that if I recall correctly, we didn't actually reshoot that riverfront scene. We were shooting a different basketball scene on the river court for another episode, and they tacked my reactions for the pilot onto that scene.
So they did like inserts of you and then edited them in?
Yeah, exactly.
They did a really good job.
They did a really good job. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how they did it, though. If that's what I remember.
That scene is so good.
It really is. And,
It's
you know,
so
like as
good.
much as we are so, we kept saying while we were watching it how impressed we were with James and how strong and intimidating, and he was holding his own.
He was 17 years old when
and
you
like
guys did
so
that.
attractive and captivating on screen. And, you know, they did a really good job because with these characters too, because I really was rooting for Lucas when I watched this pilot as much as and it's a feat to have you sort of, you're attracted to the villain in a way, but you're also rooting for the guy that's supposed to be the hero. I mean, if they hadn't done that right, if they hadn't cast it right, shot it right, written it right, if those guys hadn't played it right, we probably wouldn't be sitting here today, because that was the biggest moment in the pilot that I think brought people back, keep coming back, you know.
James was so sinister in the pilot.
Yeah.
Which watching now, I'm like, what?
How did he do that?
17 blows my mind. At the time, we took it for granted. Because,
Right.
like, you just expect everyone to show up and, you know,
do their job.
do their job.
Yeah.
Watching it now, you know, he's not that far removed from my son's age, you know, which is like creepy. He's only 6 years older than Gus was at the time.
Wow.
And so super impressive. But I remember them recasting your part. It had originally been a character named Reagan. It was played by Sam Shelton, who's an awesome actress.
Great singer, by the way, too.
Great singer. Her and Zoe Deschanel had like a duo at the time.
that. Yeah.
And she was so cool and so fun. But when I was told that they were recasting her, it was specifically because they wanted Nathan and Haley to become a couple. And I remember at the time, and Sam just wasn't right for that. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like those two didn't work because Sam was older than I was. So the jump from James to me and then her to James was just
it's a different chemistry.
really different chemistry. And I remember thinking when they told me that, like, there's no fucking way that will work. Like, Nathan and Tudor Girl? Like, what? Because he was so, like, bad. He was so bad.
Yeah.
In my mind, there was no way to make it work. And so it's a real testament to James's work.
Yeah.
Being able to take Nathan from that dark place into like a beloved daddy figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and he's so genuinely such a good, solid guy that
Yeah.
that was bound to come through as
Did
well.
you know from the jump that they were going to put you two together?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
No, I never knew that.
I didn't either. And by the way, it's because I mean, I would think if I like click into a producer hat for a second, they wanted there to be that tension that existed in season 1 where all the fans, because we were piggybacking the end of Dawson's Creek, everyone wanted you and Lucas to be Pacey and Joey.
Right,
Yeah.
Or to
right.
be Dawson and Joey.
We were all
Which one is
expecting
it?
that.
Dawson
That's
and
what I was
Joey. I don't even
expecting.
know.
Yeah.
We all thought you guys were maybe going to end up
That's what I
together.
thought.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
That whole
Did you guys
first-
never went there, did you, ever?
No. I mean,
Such a strong choice.
I don't think that ever. Well, we'll find out as we keep watching because I honestly don't remember most of the first season. I mean, I remembered those moments from the pilot, but no, we didn't have that kind of. We just that chemistry wasn't there. It didn't exist.
That really was a good example of a male-female friendship that was earnest and like hard when it needed to be hard
yeah.
and just kind of we didn't really see a lot of that
There
where
was-
it didn't veer off into romantic territory.
Yeah, there just wasn't sexual tension there for whatever reason. I don't know.
But I think it gave.
Although when Chef walked into the room, don't think we didn't clock that in Karen's cafe.
your flustered little reaction.
Oh, what are you doing, Uncle Keith? Hello. Do you know Paul? We were all having dinner at Deluxe, me, Paul, and Craig, and
While I was hanging out with the NYU boys, you were with the grown-ups.
Yeah.
You were having a fine time, Joy.
trying to figure out where I fit
Joy
in.
nailed it. We
Yeah.
were idiots.
No, this was years
Idiot
later. This
things.
is years later. I don't know if he came back to the show or if it was before he left or something. It was years later. But I had kind of gotten over my crush with him, and but we were at dinner and we're all sitting there, just like Paul, aka Dan Scott, who I love very, very much, but who loves seeing people in awkward, uncomfortable situations. It's just pure comedy to him. And so true to Paul, we're all sitting at the table and he goes, "Hey, chef, Joy had a massive crush on you for the first time." He was like, she was in love with you. And I just turned like beat. Greg just looked at me and I was like, yeah.
Let's not talk about it.
Funny things we think when we're young. And I don't know what I made up. He was so sweet.
Man.
He is such a sweetheart, though. Like, what a great guy.
Well, and we
Such a
loved
sweetie.
his daughter.
Yeah.
Like he was a
she
hot single dad.
Yeah.
And we would babysit his daughter, Willow.
You know what I have to
God,
say?
she was
He
a cool
was looking
kid.
out for us, too.
Yeah.
Like, he really was one of the ones that was the very few people that was a good listener and would wanted to hear how our experiences were, what we were going through, would give advice freely. Like, just really, he really cared,
Yeah.
He and Paul were so special looking back on it. And I've told you guys this, and I've said it at conventions too, but for anybody who's never been able to hang out with us, when we started shooting this season, so we came back after this pilot episode, my parents came down to Wilmington to like move me into my apartment, like bring dishes, all that kind of stuff. Like I was going into my dorm. We went out to dinner with James and his mom at like one of those, riverfront restaurants.
Yeah.
And James was like, he had to have a chaperone because he was still a kid.
Yeah.
And so it was almost like we were being set up to be buddies,
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, our parents are making us be friends because we're playing boyfriend, girlfriend. And then afterwards, I took my parents to that upstairs French bistro. What the hell was that place called? Caprice? Yes. And Paul showed up. And Paul is like so good at ordering wine. Paul is so charming
he's
and
been all
he's
over
so
the
funny.
world.
And I think we were laughing. And at some point, like I laughed and like touched his knee and was like, "Oh, you old scamp," like one of those moves. And my parents' mood changed. And we left. And my parents were like, "You are not dating him. Don't even think about it." And it had never occurred to me, but I was like, oh, maybe I will do that.
Is that
one.
an option?
Well, now the world's opened up. But when
it's
you're
so-
all new,
Yeah.
It's also so funny to us because Joy had the smart sights, I think, but I don't know. At least for me, like, and I imagine as we've talked about it for you, I looked at Paul and Craig like they were supposed to be playing our dads.
meanwhile,
Like,
they're only like 15, 16 years older than us.
But at the time, because I still felt like such a little kid, it never occurred to me
Yeah.
that they were not actually our parents' age. And so now, like, you telling me that Jeff and Paul are the same age blew my mind. I was like, what?
And when we watched the episode, when I met Jeff, he was like, "Oh, I auditioned for that show." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And my husband, Jeffrey, auditioned for Sheffer's part.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And he was like, "Yeah, I like the whole like gritty garage guy, that like edgy thing."
Yes.
So Joy was onto something,
Hey.
Hey,
Yeah.
Had
well,
El Jefe shown up in those tight jeans that Chef was wearing,
can you imagine?
yeah, I would have definitely had kids earlier. That's a totally different behind the scenes scandal.
Oh my God, it's so good. And by the way, the wildness of you while we watched the pilot, like this would have actually been mind blowing because you talk about in that scene in the car where you stop and you like make the face at Chad.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, that's my kid staring back at me.
It's
like,
weird.
What if it had actually? What if
Ew,
that was? I was
gross.
like, oh my God, it would have been so crazy.
Yeah, my son is probably going to be an actor. Like he has already dived into directing stuff and really, really loves it. And I don't want him to do it until he has a real clear sense of who he is.
Yeah.
Because I was so like wishy-washy and I didn't grow up in the industry the way he has. I was super green from Virginia, didn't know anything about film work. Meanwhile, he's like a pro now. I still don't want him to do it till he's 18.
Yeah.
I feel that way about Maria.
Yeah, but to see my face, my child's face in a cheerleading uniform, I'm like, oh my God, it's Gus just making those surly little faces and like super grumpy and very dramatic.
I love
it's
it.
Yeah, it's
We
weird.
were babies.
It is weird seeing like the kid in yourself.
Yeah.
I'm protective of it.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me a little bit emotional. I mean, firstly, let me just say, on the subject of things we deserve, we all
Because we
deserve it. I'm proud of us for caring about each other enough to have, been at this and be such fierce, lovers of and defenders of each other for all these years.
Yeah.
And I love that we're doing this and we're, taking back our joy from a place that had so much of it, but also had not joyous experiences. And it's kind of wild because I feel that too. I feel so protective of you both. And I feel protective of my young self. And I feel so protective of Brooke Davis, like she's a person. Like I get surly if anyone tries to come for her. And then I have it also for Peyton and for Haley.
Yeah.
Like I remember some quote unquote fan on the internet, tried to say why Peyton was a bad friend. And I was like, you don't know the first thing about what Peyton Sawyer did for Brooke Davis. And I was like, wow, this is an irrational reaction that I'm having.
Yeah.
This is not appropriate in any way. But I don't know. It's nostalgic and beautiful and intense a little to watch that pilot.
Full disclosure, I cried afterwards because you watch it and the sense memory is there. Like I remember what the river court smelled like next to the river in the middle of the night. I remember like that humidity and also the smell of the lights, and there's just like such sense memory about it. And we had no idea in that moment that the thing that we were making at 20, 21 years old was going to be the thing that became like the cornerstone of our life. When people stop me in the grocery store, like every once in a while it's white collar or a Christmas movie or something, but 99% of the time it's this show. And it makes you think like, oh, maybe I would have made some different choices if I knew that this was going to live forever. There was no streaming then. There was no like internet. You couldn't watch TV on internet.
Yeah.
That was it.
On the
SoapNet,
network.
That's right. Which doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
That was
And
it.
we had no idea what was coming.
Well, we didn't know what was ahead in terms of the good or the bad of it.
What was your favorite moment from the pilot?
As a viewer?
I feel like this is what we should do every episode. What was our favorite moment?
Oh,
just as a viewer,
I loved Karen ripping down a new one in the car dealership, because now that we're the age that Moira was when we shot that, like if my agent sent me those sides and was like, hey, do you want to do this show? Like, yes. Yes, I do. Thank you so much. Like it was a great character. She knew exactly how to play the pissed off mama bear. And it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch Moira. She's so good and
really
scary.
is.
Like a little scary.
you want her on your team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think probably just that big game at the end on the river court when the guys are facing off with each other. That was, the stakes were so heightened, and I think that, and I do remember really loving the image of the guy who was not Chad, but doing Chad stand-in, walking across, just bouncing the iconic image from the show. Van walking across the bridge, bouncing the basketball. It was such great, brilliant imagery. Whoever came up with that shot, it's brilliant. It like sticks in my head. And then you and Chad at the railroad tracks always sticks in my head too. You were so natural. You felt so comfortable in front of the camera, Hilarie, and there was like an instant, I don't know, that the chemistry between the two of you guys in that moment, I felt it, and I remember that tugged at my heart instantly on the show. I was like, I think I'm in on this show.
Yeah.
And then the moment on the basketball court really tied it all up for me.
Absolutely, I agree. That basketball scene is just so good because you know what the stakes are for these families, and something about this sort of dynastic element of who Dan Scott is.
What does that word
She's
mean?
smart. She went to space camp,
Excuse
y'all.
me.
you know. But truly, this notion that this character of Dan Scott has a dynasty essentially in this small town. He's like a king.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And the element of what his hyper masculine sort of patriarchal story is with this, you know, his progeny, his son who's, you know, next in line for the throne, and then this other kid who by no choice of his own is sort of stuck in this mess, and the woman who's been harmed by it playing his mother. Like, it's so good. And then you realize as these two boys essentially are in this gladiator battle that neither of them chose this and that it's going to affect them for the rest of their lives. I just remember thinking how elemental it felt. And I had that same moment of like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And I loved how it was constantly reinforced. Similarly, I couldn't relate to that family story, but what I could relate to was being a part of a world, but still feeling like an outsider in it.
Yeah.
You know, from the outside, maybe I looked like I had it together, or like, you know, I was in this club or that club or did theater or seemed popular. But I always felt more like Peyton. I always felt really uncomfortable, sort of in the skin of that place.
You did a good job, Soph, because you came in with Brooke Davis just like, "What's up, bitches?
Guns
I'm here to win,"
blazing.
you know, and like owned it.
But I had to be someone I couldn't relate to.
Yeah.
And so that's actually what made it easier for me. And I always felt a little uncomfortable in a room of people who seemed like they had it all together. And the moment that made me feel seen was the cutting back and forth, almost montage style, in the scenes where Nathan's driving the school bus.
Yeah.
All the cool kids are partying. And Peyton's a cool kid, but she's not there. And she's driving her car, listening to angsty music by herself. And it's cutting back and forth between these two driving scenes. And Nathan almost drives into the train, and you almost run Lucas over. And everybody stops. And I don't know, that was the thing that made me feel seen.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have felt that. I get that.
What were you listening to in your car by yourself in high school?
Man.
Woo.
I mean,
Sheryl Crow, baby. Who ended up coming on the show. I was totally geeked out with her. And Billy Joel.
Yeah. Sheryl Crow. It's funny because I grew up listening to Motown with my mom and the Eagles with my dad. And then I got really into, I think just like being a kid who lived in LA, you know, it was the era of Tupac and the Tupac and Biggie battle. Yeah. And then I was a senior in high school when Chronic 2001 came out. And I was like, Dr. Dre is the coolest. Yeah. So I was just like this, you know, really gangly little white girl who loved rap.
That's hysterical. What about you, Hill? What were you listening to?
I wasn't allowed to listen to modern music really. And so you know, with Peyton and all her dumb vinyl, you know, that was like who I was. The only music I could get was what we could check out at the library, because I didn't have necessarily money growing up to go and buy CDs or tapes or whatever. Yeah. So we checked out stuff from the Sterling Public Library. And I remember getting like my Culture Club albums. Like I was obsessed with Boy George. I was so obsessed with androgyny and like
David
sexuality,
Bowie.
Annie Lennox, Boy George, David Bowie.
Melissa Etheridge.
Girl, I was on a real gender bender kick. And so Peyton coming in with a lot of masculine energy felt like good to me. I was like, this chick can kiss anybody she wants. Yeah. This will be great. Yeah. Which is something that a lot of the fan base has picked up on. You know, like there is a large part of the fan base that's like, Peyton's gay, right? And I'm like, I don't know. There's still time, guys. You know? Life is long. So yeah, that was, you know, what was fun for me. I would love to know where all those records ended up.
Yeah,
scattered to the wind.
I'm sure.
I know. I stole some things for you from set when we wrapped up, but they'd packed those records up by then, and I was pretty pissed about it. I was like, "Where did they go?"
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Most Likely To. Okay, so we're going to try and do this at the end of every episode. Who's most likely to, you know, like in high school, like in your high school, maybe you had this in your yearbook.
We should ask the fans what their most likely tos were so we can get some ideas.
Oh, I like that idea. I like that idea.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in most yearbooks, like the the one I hear about a lot is most likely to succeed.
Yeah.
Are there others that you would prefer to explore?
No, I mean,
or-
I think this idea of success in this first episode is such a major point because obviously on paper, Dan Scott is most likely to succeed. But as we know,
that doesn't happen.
that's some malarkey.
Yeah, that's right.
Who do we feel like
Who is most likely
really succeeded in this world?
And well, I guess define success, right? In high school, typically most likely to succeed means the person who's going to make the most money or build the biggest business in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different definitions to success.
It's like not the kid joining Peace Corps. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
But it
now we're
should
like,
be.
it should be the kid joining Peace Corps.
Yeah.
I mean, Karen has raised a child who loves her. And
Yeah.
I think as like adults now, we realize
That
how rare
is
that can be sometimes.
Success.
Yeah, I mean, a kid that communicates with you and loves you
Yeah.
and lets you into their world is a big deal.
Someone with a strong moral character who you can drop into any scenario and they're going to do the right thing. You know, I mean, that's massive success for sure.
I think most likely to succeed is Barry Corbin a little bit, who plays Coach Whitey, who when we were shooting One Tree Hill, had been in more television shows and movies. Like the length of Barry's career
Yeah, it's insane.
is nuts. And like just dropped into this world of freaking teenagers and was like, guess I'm gonna own this. And for those of you who don't know, no one had a better time in Wilmington than Barry Corbin.
Oh, yeah.
Good God.
We should try and get him to come in and chat with us
Uncle Barry?
sometime. I would
What
love
I would
that.
give to hear Barry's stories.
Well, because he just watched us
Uh-huh.
and like enjoyed that. Like
It's the way he watches the cattle, just moving along. Isn't that interesting what's happening over there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say I think my vote for most likely to succeed in this episode is going to be Mouth. I think watching him on the river court do his thing, he was so driven and focused, and it really set the tone for him as a character throughout the rest of the series. Everything that he was always driving at, he provided so much ammunition and fuel for so many different storylines, and he was just always chasing a dream, you know. And I love that about him.
Yeah.
That's my vote.
he brought a lot of energy. What about you?
Oh, man. I was really like, you're right. It's Karen. That's the way to go. And now I'm like, oh, but Mouth. I'm so bad at this. I've never been able to pick a thing. I don't know. I think it's funny because then I also
Haley,
have,
excuse me. Sorry, something in my
oh,
throat.
so weird. Well, yes, and obviously,
Sure. Yeah.
she's brilliant. But like the pilot feels very set up to give Lucas, who's always been the outcast, his first taste of success. Like that boy
Yeah.
gets his first win in the pilot, and I think what they set up is the audience curiosity as to whether or not he's going to be able to hold on to it. Like you come back to see which of them gets the ball next time. And that I think is a really brilliant device.
I'm going to say the most likely to succeed for me is the town of Wilmington,
Oh,
because this show was such a love letter to that town. The way it's shot is so beautiful, and it has set up like a tourism industry that has, surpassed anything I think anyone ever expected. And like Dawson's didn't take place in North Carolina. They were like cheating Cape Cod, I guess,
Oh, that's
for
right. That's right.
Wilmington for Cape Cod. And so I think Wilmington came out such a winner.
You took this to such another level, Hilarie.
It's a metaphor, y'all. It's a metaphor.
this is why she should be running the film commission.
That's right.
Hello?
Yo, I don't join clubs anymore. We're clubbed out. The Drama Queen Club is the only one I'm a part of anymore.
Drama queen.
So next week we have episode 102, The Places You Have Come to Fear the Most. That sounds dangerous.
It's because I'm showing up
Yeah.
like a hellion. And my bad hair.
Oh, please.
That was a bad haircut. It was so cool then. But good God, I wish we'd had one advisor.
A female executive.
We needed
Comes
a female
back to
executive.
hair.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It all comes back to hair.
Yeah, I'm into it. All right, y'all better watch the episode because we're going to have some things to say.
That's right.
Sophia and her hot little bod show up. And it's Travel City.
We can't wait to see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Have a good night, y'all.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens.